coaching purposes.
Hello all. We'll start sharp in next 2 minutes. Thank you everyone for being here today with us. In sharp 2 minutes.
Cheers.
Hello all. A very good afternoon. So before I start, if anyone can let me know I am audible and clear.
Yes, audible.
You're
Thank you
audible,
so
audible
much.
and visible.
Yes, thank you so much. So hello all, a very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, and on behalf of the Branalytics team and our partner, Tigergraph, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of our webinar, Generate More Value with Same Existing Data with Graph-Powered Entity Resolution for financial crime detection and customer 360. Before we start the webinar, there are a few guidelines that I would like to highlight and make you people aware of. Requesting all the attendees to be on mute when the speakers are taking the session. We will have a Q&A session with our speakers. So there are certain guidelines that I would like to highlight. You need to raise your hands, unmute yourself on your video, introduce yourself, and put your question to the concerned speaker. Also, we have a few attendees who have joined through the gadgets, requesting you to please rename yourself. That helps us to share the feedback form and also to share the video of the entire webinar after the session. So before I start, I am very happy to introduce our partner, Tigergraph. Tigergraph is a platform for advanced analytics and machine learning on connected data. Based on the industry's first and only distributed native graph database, Tigergraph's proven technology supports advanced analytics and machine learning applications such as fraud detection, anti-money laundering, entity resolution, customer 360 recommendations, knowledge graph, cybersecurity, supply chain, IoT, and ad hoc analysis. This company is headquartered in Redwood City, California, USA. A few lines why the webinar is happening and why we are here today. We all know fraud prevention and mitigation remains an ever-present and evolving challenge for financial service leaders. Financial frauds have emerged as an inevitable unwanted byproduct of economic growth. In this session, we'll explore the power of graph for the banking industry, entire BFSI industry, I must say. Connecting customers and financial data together has never been more important for financial crime detection, and graph makes that part very easy. And today we are going to have some interesting discussion on this. And now, first, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Noah Leard, Director of Financial Service, APJ Tigergraph. To speak about him, he has more than a decade of experience in applied mathematics, data science, and technology in financial applications. And he's here with us today to share his interesting insights on combating financial crimes with graph databases and analytics. Over to you, Noah, for taking the session, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you for having me. I'd like to thank everybody here present with me to hear that presentation and also take side on the fireside chat session after. So let me get started. Can I check that everybody can see my screen?
Yes, we can. Noah.
Perfect. Sure. Thank you very much. So I will introduce to you, first of all, what is graph, but also what is the next generation anti-money laundering solution using graph. So quickly, to get into it, graph analysis and graph analytics in general is a big differentiator in the sense that, as we'll see, this is going to be critical in any industry you are in. Today, we're going to talk about anti-money laundering solution and fraud, but any industry you are in will be impacted by graph technology. So with Tigergraph, we had a pretty good introduction with Tigergraph. So I only spent a few seconds here, but I just wanted to say that we are the only scalable graph database for enterprise, but also that we are also available on all the cloud, and we can deploy both in cloud, native application, things like that. I would like to emphasize our customers include, as you mentioned, financial firm, but also cybersecurity, e-commerce, telco, healthcare. Basically, any industry, as I mentioned, is impacted by graph technology. So graph, what is graph? First of all, what are we talking about here? Well, graph is not new. Graph theory has actually been around for several centuries. And it was invented basically to solve some certain problematic that were not solvable using classical, or I would say the known type of mathematics existing at the time. So it was invented by Leonhard Euler, is one who is credited for inventing graph theory. And the story is technology only just caught up. Okay, so we have this body of knowledge, and we know of the technology to actually exploit that body of knowledge in real world use cases using data. So why graph? Well, graph, as I mentioned, is going to be hugely impactful in the sense that it's going to be, according to Gartner, in 80% of data and analytics by 2025. So this is a massive growth from what we are today. So we are still very much an emerging technology. And this is very much something that will be a key differentiator in whatever industry, business, or even in governance in the future. As, for example, Mark Bayer has said, the question is not whether you will graph or not graph. It will happen. You will use graph in your analysis. It's been identified as one of the 10 top trends that will change your business in 2021 as a graph relate everything. And we'll go into why does it relate. It relates everything. So that's a graph. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a graph. This is not a graph. Those are charts. A graph is about the connectivity of everything. So for example, we have an example here. We can see Bob. Bob is an entity, so is a node represented in the graph as a node. And we can see those links here, and we'll go into more detail what are those links. But what's important is that we know that Bob is a friend of Alice, or Bob is interested in the Mona Lisa, and we know that the Mona Lisa is exhibited at the Louvre, and we know that it's located in Paris, which is the geography. And already you can see by the color that we have used, those are different data sets. And this is really what a graph is. It's about joining the dot. It's about connecting the different data sets that you might already have, or new data sets that you were not able to connect before. So basic of a graph is as follows. There are three main categories of object in a graph. There is a vertex. Vertex would be those round shape, effectively, and they represent an object. And when we say an object, it doesn't mean it represents something that actually has to exist. Graphs are very good at representing physical system, but also symbolic system, and also physical systems, such as, for example, transfer of energy or things like that. So it's really good at representing a lot of things, but it's a first, I would say it's a main actor in what you are trying to model analysis. So if I keep on going, the second thing that you have in a graph are the edges. The edges is the relationship between those vertices. So for example, we know that a person can own a house, or a person can drive a car, or a person can be in love with someone who can also love them back. A person can live with someone, and this person can also own a car, which actually she can own the car, and this person is actually the driver. And immediately you start to see a lot of information in terms of what a graph can bring to you. And finally, an important thing is properties. Properties are basically information about a node, or it could be information about an edge too. And those are more about information about, for example, this person is actually named Sam. Now, this has been the evolution of data, basically, and the rise of graph database. As you can see, we went from relational database schema, where you have those table and you have to do those join on those table, okay, in order for you to actually start to make sense of what really is happening. You had the key value landscape or NoSQL landscape, which is, highly fluid schema, but extremely performant in terms of transaction, but very limited in terms of analysis. And finally, you have the graph. And the graph DB basically allow for high performance for complex transaction and high performance for deep analysis. So this is really where we are. It has been an evolution of technology, as you can see. So graph, why is it important? Graph is important in any use case which is based on relationship. So it's no longer, the data itself is still important, don't get me wrong, but what we're saying is the actual relationship between the data is as important as the data itself. And this is where the true value of graph comes from, because it allows you to see your data and exploit your data in a way that was not feasible before. So if I go into the topic of AML and fraud, we have a couple of use cases where actually graph has been used successfully. So for example, I give you Bank of America, and here on the left, you can see, for example, how it's been used. It is used to basically trace an account, and an account to a payment, and a payment to another account, then to another user. No traditional, I would say, basic graph systems and so on are able to do a couple of ops. And even on a relational database, you might be able to do one or two ops. But here, this is where we come in. Where we come in is what we call deep analytics, where we can go to 4, 5, 6, 7 ops and more, as we will see. And this is really where the value comes from. And so this is, for example, to investigate credit card fraud. But I'll go into some different examples in the world of anti-money laundering and fraud investigation. Another case would be a US bank who's also using us. And an important factor about graph is that it reduces false positive. It reduces false positive because you have high explainability of your model and why you came to a conclusion. You can see it. It's there. It's in the graph. It's the connectivity. So you can just go and visualize it. So there is no opacity that you would have on normally very complex machine learning, even if you can actually have embedded machine learning system and have graph and machine learning work together to get a hybrid outcome and better outcome. You get the performance and the explainability of graph and some analytics that you can only do on graph database, and you get the other enrichment that you could get from machine learning, for example. Finally, another use case would be also the Australian Taxation Office. The Australian Taxation Office uses us to actually investigate tax evasion and tax avoidance. And basically, they are able to uncover relationship up to 15 to 20 connection deep into the different money transfers that are made around. Another use case, and I'll let that one speak for itself because we have a representative on that panel today, but Merkle Science uses graph analytics and Tigergraph, especially for cryptocurrency, anti-money laundering, and fraud investigation. I think, we'll go into more detail about what they're doing here and how they are doing it. But this is, I think, a very, very valid use case in the world of graph, because as you know, you can actually finally have some visibility on what's going on into the different blockchain and the crypto world, because thanks to graph, you're able to map all the different transfer and exchange between the different wallets, for example, that you were not would have been able to do on traditional database system. So one important point back to that seminar is that all of this is achieved on pre-existing data. We are just leveraging the power of GraphDB to actually get to those outcomes. So this is not new data. We didn't have to create new data for that. So I wanted to give a very quick demo of what does that look like in the real world. So if I go there, I have a dashboard, which is an investigation dashboard. And it's an investigation dashboard for a fraudster. So if, for example, I'm looking at someone that I have been flagged, for example, in the case of a use case, this person right here, Fran Farmington, we have flagged it as someone who we suspect might be involved in a fraud. So let's look at that person. So immediately we have a growth overview of who is Fran Farmington, and we can see his risk score is quite high. So let's go and look at this person. Now you can see that Fran Farmington is indeed connected, and we can see a lot of different nodes connected to that entity. So we can see, for example, his IP address right here, his street address, his session, plenty of information like that. So interestingly, we want to see, for example, let's investigate this street address. He's got a couple of addresses, so let's investigate those. And you can see immediately that I have an expand button. The expand button already tells me what else is connected to that address. And very suspiciously, I have another party connected to that address. It's in my data, but I would not have been able to figure that out without using graph technology. So let's see who is that party that's connected to Fran. And we can see that it's actually a company. It's CTW Inc. And CTW Inc. is actually at the same address, but this is quite curious. So let's go and let's investigate CTW by itself. So I'm going to just clear that for a second. And then I'm going to investigate this party. All right. Now I have CTW. As you can see, this node got a risk that is quite high, but not as high as Fran. And I can have also a bunch of information regarding CTW. So let's go. And here I can see all the information I got. So for example, it's a corporation, okay? And we know it's a risk score of 6. We know it's associated with some risk here. We can go into that after. We can see its closeness and neighbors and so on, which are different different graph metrics. What's interesting is we can see that we can add comment about that entity right here, and we can start enriching the experience of the investigator. So you can see those comments actually right here. So now I would like to know, let's see this entity, how far is it from anything that has been flagged as something with a risk? So I want to see if it's from a SAR report. So SAR report as our US basically report to the regulator of a client that have been caught doing either anti-money laundering fraud or suspicious of fraud and anti-money laundering by financial services establishment. So let's see if there is any SAR report within 3 ops of that party. And as we can see, there is a bunch. We have a bunch of SARS report. So for example, we have through this company, Cru6 LLC, we can see that this is connected. We can see also that it's part of Louvain Ring. So Louvain Ring are a graph community detection. So basically it means that this entity has been identified as part of the same community of those entities which have been flagged as SARS. And again, this is what you get from graph out of the box, in the sense those are analytics and exploration that is not possible without a graph system. No, okay, so now I start to see that this is quite weird, but this is a bit funky. So let me reorganize this so we see a bit better. So for example, I can group all the different vertices by type, and those are, for example, my SARS report. So I'm gonna put them here, and those are my addresses. So let me move them here. And what I'm more interested in are those different street addresses and the entity right here. Oops, sorry. I didn't ask for a dictionary. There we go. So, and here we can see some organization. Now let's go back to Fran. So Fran, where was our friend Fran? So let's bring him back onto that graph, right? Now I've added back Fran Farmington. Now if I look back in, you'll see that the different parties are there, and Fran or friend is back here. Now what I have is very suspiciously, you can see there is a lot of connectivity between Fran and this company, except there is no direct link. So this is the power of graph right here. I have identified that there are a connection between them, but just not directly. It's not in the data. This is really about the relationship between the data. And not only can I do that, but I can start exploring further. So for example, okay, Fran knows that I'm starting to suspect something is going on. Why don't you show me all banking transaction within 3 ops? Whoops, sorry, wrong click. There we go. And now I have a bunch of banking transaction. Okay, and we can see, oh, they are related to different. Let me zoom back in so it makes more sense. Different cases that have already been flagged inside my financial institution are suspicious. Not only do I have this, but Tigergraph, we have the concept of time, and time is an important dimension in finance. So we can see all those different events took place. Now, we can not only see them, but we can also explore how they took place. So for example, as you can see, this is getting grayed out in the sense that those took place outside. Not only can I do that, but I can literally replay the event as it took place. I can do it a window, but I can expand it, and I can replay all those transfer took place over time. So this is really the power of graph analytics right here, where I am able to identify a suspect. I'm able to investigate where are the transfer, where did the money go, what account did it go to. I'm able to identify what other suspicious entities I might have in my organization, but I'm also able to understand what happened and why did it happen, and is it a new type of fraud? Are those, for example, those transfer happening in patterns, or are they happening at the same time? You know, so all of this is basically giving you new ways of exploring your data to actually explore fraud. Now, if I clear that, I wanted to go into another fraud. So this is, for example, the dashboard. So the dashboard would be, for example, where you manage all those cases. And the dashboard is not necessarily meant for you to go and actually, you know, it's basically what you would get traditionally. But here we have a new dimension. We have a graph dimension. So for example, if I go into my alert, I click here. And sorry, well enough. There we go. My case is now shown as a graph, and I can start exploring again. No, I'm not going to go back into what we just did, which is exploring. That would be escalated to that investigation dashboard I've just shown you. But what I want to show you is, for example, or you would be able to create new alerts. So for example, let's say you have a new alert that you would like to create, and you could just go there, add some criterias, and your criterias might be, for example, a geography. I want to know which region actually are getting transferred to. So for example, I could select countries which are under financial embargo. And this would also be run onto the graph because we have geographical representation inside the graph. Those transfer will be linked to an address, those address will be linked to a geography, and so on and so on. So this is really to show you a graph really empower all your capabilities in terms of anti-money laundering and fraud. So conclusion. So in conclusion, graph removes and create new value from your data. And I think that's the important thing. We remove silos and we create new value from your data, but also from extra data, which means that the value that you get per data set suddenly increase exponentially. The more data sets you have, the more value you have into your graph. Whereas traditionally, the more data sets you have, the least value you have per data set, because it becomes impossible for you to make them work together. So that's really the conclusion of that presentation. So thank you very much. I think that covers everything I wanted to show you for today. And I'll be now part of the panel to discuss this and other questions that you may have. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Noha, for sharing interesting insights. Now, everyone, as I've mentioned on the chat box also, we can take one or two questions with Noha. And of course, then we have an interesting fireside chat session with all the industry speakers also. So any questions, please raise your hand. So we'll love to take one or two questions right now. We'll wait for a while, Noha, for people to ask questions. Or you can also mention on the chat box, we can take it from there. Okay, we have a question from Vijay, if you see Noha. Thanks for the nice presentation. How scalable is the Graph DB?
Yes, so Tigergraph, we are the only massively parallel processing graph database on the market. So we are, let me put it this way, we are still pushing our limit. We haven't found them yet. We are scalable horizontally and we scale linearly by the number of boxes we add because we are a distributed graph database. So we are massively scalable. We can do what we call big data. We're talking the terabyte and very, very soon to the petabyte type of databases with no problem.
Okay. So any more questions do we have? You can raise your hand and introduce yourself. Pramod from Federal Bank. Pramod, do you have a question? Okay, yes, he has mentioned something on chat that how this can be used for forensic audit.
Okay, forensic audit. This is not necessarily my field of specialty, but forensic audit would be basically, the way you would use it is that you would be able to first see the events as they took place and replace them, but you would be able to also link, for example, siloed data that you previously had. So for example, a strength of GraphDB, as I mentioned, is also figuring out missing data link. So for example, if let's say you have the behavior expected from a case would be that two entities are connected. Suddenly, you would be able to find that those two entities are not connected. And that would be, for example, a new way of exploring your data and explore. Sorry, I think Pramod, you're trying to speak, but I think you mute.
No, I have no question. I'm listening to you.
Okay, fair enough. So that's really about leveraging the data you already have first and all. Then after you can start adding extra data that you might not have had before, but originally it's just about this disallowing basically. So you get a full picture, an holistic approach to actually a case. You get to see really what happened and all things are connected, not just at the first degree. And you don't have to just also limit yourself in, I have to make a guess, an educated guess. And I think that's what happened. And that's what I'm going to ask my relational database to answer. That's not how graph works. In graph, you can say, actually, I have a question. I don't have a guess. I don't have an hypothesis I want to test. So I have a question. Just tell me everything that answers that question. And from there, I'll be able to see what is relevant or not using my domain expertise. So that's a different way of approaching the problem altogether.
I hope that answers the question. So one more question we'll take and then we'll move on to the fireside. From Dinesh, can we have initial use cases through without any significant investments?
So initial use cases without any significant. Well, we have a lot of starter kits that you are free to go and try on Tigergraph Cloud. So we offer a free starting cloud kit, effectively, up to 50 gig of data that you can use there. You can create your own case and everything. And until you grow and you need enterprise support, enterprise deployment, or any also services, you can go and try your use cases there. I'm pretty sure we have, as I said, quite a lot of starting kit. So some of them might be immediately relevant to you, and you can use them right away to see if it actually enhances your business, or you can add value to your use cases. But also, in addition, in terms of analytics and machine learning, we have 50 plus graph algorithm in our graph library that are all open source, free to use, and free to go and enhance and modify. We're using a language called GSQL, which is our language. It's very close to SQL, so the learning curve is quite easy. And in addition to that, it is Turing complete, meaning you can write any piece of code, any complex algorithms that you want into GSQL and have the performance enhancement from Tigergraph from it.
Thank you. Thank you, Noah, for sharing all the insights. Now, we are moving to an interesting part. That's the fireside chat session, where basically the discussion topic is why graph technology is a game changer for the financial services sector. I would first like to introduce our speaker, and then I would like to invite our moderator. So first speaker we have is Mr. Nirmal Paul, Vice President and Head, Fraud Prevention Unit and Claims Investigation with Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance Company Limited. We have Mr. Alok Saraswat, Head Fraud Control Unit and Sales Compliance, Future Generali India Life Insurance. We have Saurav Kumar Mohanty, Director, Risk Management with FIS Global. We have Mr. Saurabh Daga, Associate Director, Data Engineering with Merkle Science. Of course, we have Noah again with us, Director, Financial Services with Tigergraph. And I would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Kushal Bansali, India Country Manager with Tigergraph. So over to you, Kushal, to start moderating the fireside.
Thank you, Ekta, for the opportunity. And I thank you everyone who is on the session right now for taking time out. I know we are moving towards Diwali and this is busy time, so we really appreciate this. And I'm especially thankful to all the panel speakers for taking time out and joining us today. And I'm sure after Noah's session, though it was a quick one, you were able to get idea about Graph and the type of use cases we are talking about and the power we are providing to different verticals and different functions. However, Noah was able to cover a very small part of that today because of the time constraint. We will be more than happy after this session. You can, put your request into the chat, or when we are sending our thank you email, you will be getting more details with that. We can expand that. However, from the today's session per se, we are actually focusing on how do we use this existing data, what we already have with us, and how do we get more insights from this to tackle the financial crimes. That's our focus. And keeping that in mind, we have the panel here who comes with a huge experience on that side. So thank you again, everybody. Nirmal, we can start with you if you're okay.
Hi, good afternoon all. Thanks, Ekta from Brain Analytics, and thanks from Tigergraph. And first of all, let me start with appreciating Noah. I think that's a wonderful presentation, and this is actually given a good dimension to the people's understanding on graph. So it's a very, it's while we call it a nascent phase, but I can see this, I can pick some thread which happened in Ramayana. So when Ram and his army wanted to check where Sita has gone, so I think they used some portion of graph there, where the linkages were used, be it Jatayu, be it Garuda, be it the jewelry which they were looking into, and they were finally able to arrive. Yes, all the leads are leading to Lanka, and that's why they have started. So it's a good platform which you have set up, Noah. I think it should be an excellent session discussing on graph database. For myself, I am Nirmal Paul. I'm heading the Fraud Prevention Unit and Claims Investigation for Bajaj Allianz Life. It's been 4 years in this company, around 21 years in the sector. So I have an experience of 5 different sectors, be it banking, credit cards, publishing house, and now I'm into life insurance. So within life insurance and fraud prevention, around 16 years, which I have given, and I'm happy to share the panel with esteemed panelists. About myself, I've been dealing with a lot of analytics, be it artificial intelligence, machine learning, crime network analysis, and I also participate in various investigations, be it financial fraud investigations or it's prevention of sexual harassment. Yes, technology innovation, especially disruptive innovation, is something which I look forward to, and this is a good session to talk about. Look forward to have a very intriguing and engrossing session discussion with all of you in this fantastic talk. Thank you, Kushal. That's a short one.
Thanks, Nirmal, for the short one. Yeah, I appreciate that. And Alok, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thanks a lot, Brain Analytics and Tigergraph, for arranging this session. A little says, I was just reading an analytical outcome of digital media, which says in today's time, around 80% of the content is getting consumed through graphs or video. And even you would realize that even the print section, they enhance a lot of pictorial representation. Some of the best examples in the fraud domain is there are some of the best case studies which were cracked. Those who are participating from India would remember claims nexus fraud, which was busted in Haryana. And there was a beautiful graphical representation of a case study which was presented in Times of India. So these are the times we are dealing with. I'm Alok Saraswat. I head the fraud control unit for Future Generali India Life Insurance. I am also responsible for sales compliance, and that's where the business quality indicators comes in picture. So I'm responsible to keep one eye on that as well. And that's the profile I carry. I started my professional journey in 2002. So I carry about 18 years of experience, which is widely panned across the telecom sector, the internet service providers, insurance, within insurance, the health domain, and the life insurance sector. I'm happy to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I look forward for interesting discussions and a lot of takeaways to take it forward. Over to you, Vishal. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Alok. Over to you, Saurabh. And just adding, Saurabh is from Merkle Science, who is already our customer. So over to you, Saurabh.
Hey, hi, I'm Saurabh Daga. I'm the Associate Director of Data Engineering at Merkle Science. So at Merkle Science, we are a predictive blockchain analytics and investigations platform. We facilitate crypto businesses and financial institutions to prevent and detect the illegal use of cryptocurrencies. We also help them be in regulation by doing the KYC and AML and all those regulations as well. On the flip side, we also help investigators and law enforcement agencies with any ongoing crimes that are going on the cryptocurrencies networks. So we also help them there quite a lot. And a little background about myself. I did my master's in computer science from University of Pennsylvania, after which I worked at Barclays in New York City and DataZoo, an ad tech company. And my roles have been mostly centered around big data democratization and analytics, AI, and deriving insights from big data. And yeah, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for organizing this.
Thank you, Saurabh. And over to you, Saurabh.
Thanks, Kushal. There's a problem if you have two Saurabhs here. Initially, I thought I've never changed the company, so that's why I got confused initially. Before you address to Saurabh.
Yes.
Nevertheless, okay. So thanks, Analytics and Tigergraph for inviting. That's a fantastic panel, and glad to be associated with you all in this panel with all the knowledgeable set of people. About me, currently I'm with FIS Global. Prior to that, I was with insurance sector with Bharti General Insurance, where I was heading risk, and prior to that, I was with TCS and Citi. And currently, with the dynamics, the way the market is changing, where the business becomes faster, customer expectation has become even the fast response from all the digital system we have. So the timeline to curtail fraud, it has even become stringent, and it will even become a big headache for all the service provider. And where the regulators, they are also with their quick directing to you, ensuring that, okay, you have to provide the faster response. At the same time, you need to also curtail the fraud in a better manner. So at the time with the manual and convention system, it becomes very, very difficult, but thanks to the growing as the technology, different technology currently we are providing, perhaps just now, no, it's a fantastic presentation. I think in a very short presentation, it gave the complete whole dimension of the whole system. And it also provided the basic core principle of the whole idea and the architecture, okay, that gives. And this gives the power of technology, okay, and how it can help each and everyone who is looking at to grow their business or to avail this kind of technology for a fantastic customer service experience, and also to be abreast with the regulatory guidelines. Okay, so thank you, and looking forward for a fantastic session.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. And now, Noah, quick one. You already covered it in your presentation, but yeah, 2 more lines will help.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And I'm very, very glad to be there and being part of this panel. I think we have a great set of experts here today, so I think it's going to be quite interesting. Once again, very, very happy to hear the question. We learn as much, that you guys can learn from us. We learn as much from you. It's come from the customer first. What are your use cases? What are your challenges? And then we will help you figure out how Graph can help you. It fits the right technology for the case to actually enhance your business and enhance your customers' experience. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much for for the introductions, everybody. Just adding 2 lines for myself. I'm Kushal. I have been in the industry for close to 23 years. Last 10 years I spent with the data space. I was with Informatica for 6.5 long years. They were the pioneer into the data management space. And I have seen how the data is growing year on year. And when we're talking about data growing, especially the changing circumstances in the market today, you see the it's helping in business in terms of growing business, but at the same time it comes with a price. Like every coin has 2 sides. So we can't say no to business, but at the same time we should be aware of the risk and ways of fighting these risks. And just adding to this, that when we are working on these scenarios or situations today, we have to be always 1 or 2 steps ahead of the people who are trying to do fraud, but it's always a catch-up game. So coming back to you, Nirmal, when we actually look at market, and you have been in this space for long, and you have very vast experience on this, how do you see this whole thing changing? There's no doubt that data is growing. Technology, Graph is the next thing to do, that we'll talk about it. But before that, how do you see this space for you changing in last 2 to 4 years, especially into the last 18 months after pandemic?
So thanks, Kushal. That's a lovely question which you've asked. So pandemic has actually given birth to a lot of innovations. A lot of new dimensions have come, which was not existing. Today we are doing this call on Zoom. Pre-pandemic, we would have gone together and possibly sitting on some stage and doing these sessions. So this has been a lot of learning. And if you talk about AI and ML, this was there for 1950s, but nothing really pushed them to come into picture. But only in last 4 to 5 years, we can see a lot of use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics. And the pandemic has actually helped in developing robotics. The robots can actually deliver medicines, and even the drones. So drones were existing, but all those pandemic has given birth. So we call necessity is the mother of invention. Now we can call pandemic is the mother of invention. I hope we don't end up in getting another pandemic, but this is something which has brought a new dimension. Now with the technology going up, as we say, too much of analysis lead to paralysis. With the technology going up, we have everything available from physical to digital. Now we call it phygital to some extent. This is also giving a lot of open spaces for fraudsters to also enter this space. So while we are talking about graph, database, AI, so even fraudsters have also started understanding graph database. They may be using this better than us, maybe, possibly. So they have also understood. So if you talk about how they are using it, so today we have a lot of in life insurance. Life insurance has always been a push product. So you always push a life insurance, you only sell it. Nobody buys a life insurance. But in the pandemic, it's completely changed. People are coming back. So after roti, kapda, makan, insurance is also added. So everyone wants to have a life insurance, and this more specifically on protection business, which is the term business. And with term business, we know the risk of having a term is pretty high. It's multiple times which we have. So fraudsters have also understood, who have been into real estate business, making money there. They've understood the return of investments in insurance sector or banking sector is much, much huge. You don't have to invest into stocks and you can get those benefits. So completely changed. They have understood the systems. So small time fraudsters have actually become big time cartels. So from opportunist frauds, now it has become the organized frauds. And it is very, very important. Your traditional way of mitigation will not help. If you want to do a dedupe analysis or you have to create a rule-based investigation, that will not help. So it's important that we move further into it and we advance its technology tools. So we are talking about a lot of AI, ML, face recognition and all. So graph is something which will actually become a necessity, not just a must, but a necessity in future. And this will be involved in various industry. Yes, it is only a starting phase, but there have been if you talk about this movie called Minority Reports use cognitive analysis to identify a fraud, not just a murder, but a pre-murder. So they were able to reach 30 minutes before the murder is to happen. So can graph actually help us in identifying a crime which is going to happen, and can we stop it before it's to happen? So that's where it's being thought. But yes, within the coming year, this is going to happen. So it's a very positive thing which is happening with this technology advancement, and all of us, we are sitting here, what we are discussing today, which may look for future, maybe possible, not possible, but this is going to happen. So complete dynamics have changed. It's an open market, it's open structure. We talk about data has now gone into cloud. We talk about initially we talked about going to moon, now we're going to Mars, sometimes we'll end up in Pluto. So it's completely changed. And for sure, we don't need to another pandemic, but this pandemic has taught a lot of things. And this has made this world more beautiful. And we are very open for various technologies and various digital things.
I like the optimism, Nirmal. I really appreciate that. And that's must as of today, moving to you, Alo, I heard what Nirmal was saying, but according to you, looking at the market today, the way things are going, and we don't see pandemic going, maybe another 6 months, 9 months, we don't know the way it is going. How do you see it is impacting, your space for next maybe another year or two? What challenges you see there for your job?
So that's very optimistic of you, Kushal, 6 months. But we have prepared ourselves for a longer duration of pandemic. How it will impact us? It has already impacted us. I can only relate it. There is a benchmark judgment yesterday on Pegasus, something to do with analytics and intelligence gathering. This Supreme Court judgment for decades it will be quoted. So it actually provides a framework, and while it is in reference to journalists, the sources of journalism, but in a way it is in line I can draw is the sources for most of us, people like us, who are investigating, gathering sources. So one source is from data, and then there are other sources also. In a similar manner, pandemic will have a lasting impact on how we mitigate fraud, how we look at the subject. And we were caught obviously we were caught off guard in the pandemic's time. Investigation broadly in decades of time has been understood as a structured process. So you follow step 1 and step 2. I remember I used to get reprimanded by my supervisors for skipping a process in an investigation. So that was this sanity of the process needs to be maintained. Some time back, as Nirmal said, the times have changed, and that's the reality, that the agility is the today's ask. So in that manner, in terms of usage of data, is going to be significant, because in investigation, we were heavily dependent on market intelligence, on-field foot intelligence gathering. Now, as the pandemic cut off that intelligence part, we were finding new ways, and then that is where we focused towards the data, and some miracles have happened over a period of time. And that's where the data structuring, the data analytics, how we represent the data. Another point I wanted to add is for a person who is dealing with the fraud risk, my battle is not only against the fraudsters in field. There is another battle which we fight in the boardrooms and meeting rooms, wherein to showcase the value proposition of an investment in an investigation portfolio. And I believe that is where the graph technology is showcasing your stakeholders that there is a value proposition in this field, and some of the returns can be immediate, but some of them will take time. So that is where the analysis both helps in detection, mitigation, but at the same time in creating a value proposition for investigation, which was not there, let's say 5 years back. When my function used to be asked that what is your value proposition in this organization and why you need so much investment, why you need so many people, we used to struggle putting up a cost structure around it. Now these days it is far easy, and thanks to some of the tools which we're going to have a discussion today.
Thanks, Alok. That was really good insight. Moving to Saurabh, you already are one step ahead at this point of time, embarking on the next gen technologies, or that was the demand for you. How do you see it is? How do you see that expanding beyond what you're doing today?
Yeah, right. So graph technology is pretty new, and we've all been using tabular databases up till a couple of years back. So being in the business of blockchain and cryptocurrency, the graph, all the transactions in itself is a network structure. And so it makes a lot of sense to have it, to visualize it as a graph, and we can build a lot of relationships that are not easily obvious looking at just a couple of transactions. So yeah, in traditional databases, it's easy to analyze the behavior of wallets and accounts in the immediate vicinity. But having Tigergraph, we're able to do this further away in the network. We're able to do graph-wide analysis, do pattern recognition there. We're able to do community detection. We can identify malicious network behavior, doing these, running our algorithms, running the Tigergraph algorithms themselves. One of the other interesting things we're able to do is we're able to build clusters by looking at people's interaction and their transaction history. We are able to say, hey, these wallets and accounts are most likely belonging to the same individual and entity, which definitely helps in a bunch of use cases. And like Noah said, the GSQL language is very, very powerful. We're able to write a lot of custom algorithms that we'll possibly not be able to write using traditional SQL and probably another wrapper around it. At Merkle Science, we support a lot of cryptocurrencies from Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even the smaller ones. We are working in terabyte scale of data with maybe 30, 40 billion edges and 10, 20 billion vertices. That's how big the graphs have gotten. And we're able to unify all our data sources into one place. One is like the on-chain data, which is like what we see in the public ledger for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the other is like the off-chain data, the one that we get off the dark web, the social media websites, from other investigations and stuff like that. Using all these different sources, we're able to get them onto one platform, and we're able to run our analytics on them. Some of the things that we are more interestingly doing is, so our users and clients are able to just put in a number of wallets, and they're able to find all the interactions between them. And this is generally very, very useful when a law enforcement agency or investigators come and use our product, and they're able to just put in a couple of wallets, and they can see how the flows, how the funds have come in, how they've left, they've gone and hit into what entity, into which exchange or which mixer. And once they know that, hey, it's gone into Coinbase or Binance or one of the bigger exchanges, at that point, they can get the person's details, they can track the source of funds, and at that point, they're able to mitigate the crime and arrest the individuals involved. So Tigergraph is so powerful that it helps us do this in almost record time. It's very fast, and yeah, and it can do a lot of stuff for us. The other things that we do is we also have some auto investigation features where we just put in an address and we're able to see his whole transaction history, and we are able to see further away in the network where his funds have finally reached. This especially is very important for blockchain, is because a person can create a wallet in a couple of seconds and start making transactions anytime, and that's very easy for fraudsters to kind of hide their activity. But with Tigergraph, we are able to figure out these communities that, hey, these set of wallets all belong to the same community or the same individual. And that really helps us in all types of investigations and getting the whole history geography of any address that we put in. So yeah, these are how we are currently using Tigergraph. In the next year, we are planning to do some cutting edge AI as well, where we are looking to, we're still talking about it, we're still experimenting, but we are planning to, let's say, hey, looking at all the previous hacks that have happened, we want to say, hey, if a hack that happened of style XYZ, where would it probably end up? So those are the type of problems that we are wanting to solve in the coming year.
Great. This is exciting, Saurabh. And coming to Saurabh, I'm just making it easy for Saurabh. Okay, Saurabh, over to you. Now you have been a customer, okay? You were the user of that, and now you are actually here helping companies to, make them safe. So how do you see this shift, and how this technology, especially Graph, how do you see this, helping like what changes? It the time to solve a problem, or the accuracy or efficiency? What do you see?
Yeah, I'll not be specific to the company, but I'll make it very, very general. Okay. One thing, see, the shift is in terms of the people's view towards fraud and how they were looking at the fraud management and how they were looking at investing something in risk management. That's my baby, risk management. So I've been associated with the so long since I came into corporate. Okay. Earlier, risk management people were saying it's a cost, right? Then they understood the value. Okay, and fraud risk is one part of risk management. And you would have seen earlier the COSO, the ISO, all thing they were talking about. The initial focus is the risk management and how to mitigate risk, right? That was the basic focus, how to mitigate risk. Gradually, they understood mitigate is not only the solution, right? So you need to be proactive risk management. Okay, so from reactive risk management, everybody has moved to a proactive risk management structure. So you will see multiple standards which have changed, and now they have, in the last version of COSO, they moved to up to the strategic decision making. Okay, and where the risk management needs to be embedded from the beginning of any strategic initiation. Okay, that's how they've got this embedded into the very, very strategic level. Now, what happened, why all these things came? Because people got the flavor of the need of risk management, strong and bolstered risk management, because they see that more we invest there, if we invested a penny over there, we can save $1,000 over there, right? But earlier they were thinking, oh, this much budget is too much for a cost center, right? So that's why this happened with multi-billion dollar scams, everything that came into news every day. So then that became as an eye-opener. So we have seen in earlier, from my past experience to both banking and insurance, earlier, if you just see reactive and proactive, another thing when it gets into fraud management, which comes as a deterrence that is embedded to that. Okay, that you can be a reactive where investigation comes very last in the risk management term, right? Because that everything is done, you have to do a postmortem and identify, then to recover whether something, whatever is gone, whether we can recover that. That's a loss mitigation. Or if you are able to recover the complete thing, or whether we can bring it to a near miss situation where there is a nullified everything. Okay. But when you go to deterrence, that means you have to build something well in advance so people will get that fear. Okay. So that they will not able to do that. That means this company is, for example, just like Mossad, okay, Israel. Okay, anybody attacks Israel, they have to think twice or 100 times, because if I'll think of attacking, they will get in their mind, they will completely backlash everything, right? So those kind of things. So that's why if you're gone, the army have now moved from reactive and killing everyone, they're going to surgical strike. Okay, that is nothing but those kind of. So fraud mitigation and fraud, the need of fraud mitigation has gone into the similar mindset. Okay, so now people are thinking not to just curtail this kind of fraud, rather think beyond this kind of fraudster. Okay, then devise yourself so that you can go beyond the thinking capability of this kind of guys, right? And they will think, so that's why you will see multiple people now. Earlier they were thinking claims are recovered, we are good, you are good, but now I think Nirmal is giving you a smile because you would have done this multiple times for sure. Now, insurance company or any other bank banking companies, they are filing FIR and bringing these people into the court so that when this kind of news gets flashed in the newspaper and people are behind bar, that means other guys, they will thinking behind themselves in the bar before they are thinking about committing a fraud. So that's a deterrent. That's the power of risk management. So overall enterprise risk management, fraud being a very, very integral part of that. So in order to think and go beyond the thinking of this kind of, because these people are intelligent. Only thing is that the intelligence are just not being utilized in a proper human manner, right? The way civilized society should work. They're extremely intelligent guy. Okay. So we need to beyond think intelligence and bringing this technology so that we can surpass their thinking capacity. Okay. That is how the technology is, because the ordinary technology, the earlier process, those are not devised to curtail this kind of fraud rings. Okay, because now as Nimal or Saurabh, I think Nimal has told that, okay, earlier it was an opportunity based fraud. Now it's an organized fraud, because it's a proper organization who makes billions of dollars. Like they are also paying salary. Okay, they would have also a risk management team. I doubt they would have it. Okay, but point is that you need to have this kind of people and need to sophisticate the technology to put these guys out of their holes and put behind the bars. Okay, so those kind of technology, only a technology can help us in analyzing this kind of the chain, the web, and that they can think. And currently also, whenever any new client, and I believe anybody in the financial world, any world, they're thinking that first thing is that lot of data currently with the any sort of contract somebody is giving. So first thing they will ask, how secure is my data? Okay, that is first. Okay, then how secure is my customer's data? That is well. And whether they will ask for multiple certificates, what kind of certification you would have seen, they will go for stringent audit. They will see what kind of what kind of data security framework you have, what sort of risk management framework you have, what sort of what is your mode of what are the method you are identifying the fraud red flags. It's not about how you're identifying, how you're doing the red flags, whether you have adequate intelligence in system to analyze those red flags. Okay, not only the work related but also behavioral red flags, which is very, very vital. And if you have identified whether you have adequate reporting mechanism, whether you have adequate analysis mechanism, and what is the action you take. So these are the basic questions you will face, okay, whenever any contract you will put forth. Okay.
Got it. So yeah. Thank you, Saurabh, for this. This is good to hear from, you have been on both these sides. So that, and I'm sure from technology per se, Noah can add to this, and then I'll move to Nirmal and Alok asking this. So what I'm hearing is basically there are challenges, there are intelligent people against us. They also know technology, but at the same time, they also know there are technology which you can use and make sure that you can combat that. It's always about who's, one step ahead of that. And we can't, fail actually. So there is a saying in the such scenarios that they will try 100 times. They only need to succeed once. We have to succeed all 100 times. We know that. And when we don't do that, the reputational risk is very high for us. People who do business with us, they will think twice. Even if you failed once, they will be very, cautious about doing business with you. So that makes sense. So I'll give it to Noah. How, Noah, you heard, all other panelists talking. You got the challenges, how market is changing. We know that the Gartner is predicting that, Graph will be 10% of the all data analytics by end of 2021 and 80% by 2025, which is like 100% growth year on year, which is good, right? It's a happy news for all of us. There is a problem identified, there is a solution, is available there. How do you see, relating to these issues, and how fast, how easy, how scalable Graph is to handle such situations?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tigergraph is massively scalable. We have what we call the massively parallel processing architecture. So we have been designed to be horizontally scalable. So you get linear increase in both transactional and analytical capabilities. And actually, we are working on dissociating the two very, very soon. So you will be able to even associate resources for analytical or transactional as you want, and it's going to be extremely flexible. But we basically, you get an increase linearly by adding more machines. So that's allow us to basically enter the world of big data. And when I say big data, I'm talking the real big data. We're talking, the terabytes, we're talking the petabytes of data. And this is where we come in, right? This is our main differentiator. Is we do it fast, we do it at scale, we do it at enterprise level. And no, so that's quite a powerful story. But in addition to that, I would say beyond just the technology, because at the end of the day, it's all about the use case and the values that you bring, okay, to your users. We were talking about risk. In risk, there are a lot of things that you need to consider, but two things you need to consider is what are your mitigation strategy, what are your contingency strategy, right? Mitigation is how do you prevent the risk from happening at all? Contingency is what do you do if the risk has actually taken place? Mitigation strategy, we're talking about going from a passive approach to an active approach and a predictive approach. And how do you predict that? How do you predict what you should do when the risk happens? How do you predict your unknown? How do you know what risk will appear, what new threat will appear? When you're talking about the fact that we are facing, smart people in the world of fraud and money laundering and all this kind of thing, it's true. It's true, and we should not underestimate them. So how do we go and we make sure that we understand, for example, where the next attempt is going to come from? Well, this is where connected data is actually bringing the value, right? Because when you have connected data, as I was mentioning it, you can see the missing piece, you can see the missing link, but you can also, for example, anticipate how would, for example, that scheme, that graph will evolve over time. So let's say, for example, we are looking at money transaction. Okay, we used to look at people who were doing round trip, okay, money transaction, like they would pass money from one bank account to another and send it back to another. Now that's great. You can see that, okay. Those guys, they understood that we were tracking that. What did they do? Well, they did an extra bank account in the middle. So now suddenly you do from one bank account A to bank account B, C, D, E. And at this point, how do you know? How do you know at this point that it's a round trip? It goes through so many bank accounts, through so many steps and transactions. Same in crypto, it goes from 2, 3, 5, 6 mixer. Good luck. At this point, there is no way of going back. But what you can do with graph is that you can walk those ups. You can walk those ups very deeply. And as we were mentioning, for example, the Australian tax office is going up to 20 ups deep. And at this point, it just becomes not monetarily feasible for the fraudster. If you have to do 20 international transfer, your transfer are going to have to be massively big for them to be justified, right? Otherwise, the fees are just going to kill you. You're not going to transfer $1,000. That's not happening. Can you imagine? Back and forth, $1,000. How many cents do you get on the dollar? That's how you push fraudster out. And that's the power of graph, to allow you to see that, anticipate that, and catch them, and making basically the battleground level. Because suddenly they cannot just add a degree of obfuscation. There is no more degree of obfuscation. You can go through those degree of obfuscation through your data. And all of this, you already have that. You have those data sets. It's just impossible technologically. It was in the past 10 years, it was impossible technologically to join those data sets and to go through those ops. That's the Pandora's box right here.
Appreciate this. So this is exciting. So one thing is very clear. Data is huge. We have to be proactive, predictive. We have to create a fear in the mind of these people who are as intelligent as us, using maybe the same or alternate technology. What we can do is we can just let them know that we are on top of it. So as Saurabh rightly said, one way is what has happened and what is happening, try to stop that. But at the same time, how do you create a deterrent? So Nirmal, over to you with your experience and these technologies at your hand. So you heard Noha speaking. We're talking about the size of data. Okay, Graph can do that. It can do it fast. It's available on commodity hardware, so you can add as many nodes, process it. It's massively, parallel processing. So you can do it fast. You can do it in time. Then you're talking about you can relate everything possible. He just went to 20 hops and he gave one logic where, mostly for money laundering, possibly it will not make sense to do that because it defeats the purpose of moving that by, 20 level. We are talking 20. I will not be surprised if tomorrow it goes to 30, 35, whatever it is. We are ready. How do you see this, using this into your vertical, and how ready you are.
So I think the panel discussion which is happening is pretty exciting, and it's actually creating a lot of adrenaline busting with the discussion which is happening, and we can see how the future is going to work. So if you talk about a graph database purely, so it's being currently being used by crime agencies in cross-border terrorism, also identifying sleeper cells. Now, cross-border terrorism, I just give a small example. While I was working at the foreign exchange company in 2001, we suddenly found that all our HNI customers were going to the competition. And we were all banging our heads, where are these customers going and how these customers are going. Suddenly, we just looked at the CCTV camera. We found a sweeper who was just cleaning the room. He was taking all the receipts and he was just putting all the receipts on his pocket. Then we went back and saw the CCTV on past days, and the same thing happening. And this person came 15 daars back. Then we realized, oh, then once we investigate that person, we came to know he came from the competition. He was planted there. He was a seed there, and he was taking all the data. So while we're talking cross-border terrorism, it's one example over there. So again, what graph database can actually help whenever we are recruiting people? Are we recruiting the right people, or they are linked with somebody or some other organization, and how they are coming? So we talked about sleeper cells. So a lot of few people know about sleeper cells. It's only come through the movies which we have seen. But sleeper cell do exist. It exists in army, and this is also coming in now life insurance companies. So life insurance, there are pockets where they are known for this criminal activities, where they kill a person. They are about to kill a person. They give alcohol to a person who's dying, who's suffering from chronic alcoholic, and those customers are inserted in the life insurance business. Now we have seen not just customers acting as sleeper cells. Now there are agents and employees who are also becoming part of the insurance industry, and we don't come to know. We talk about graph database, so they also have an access to people who are in PIP, which is performance improvement plan. So there are people who are about to be terminated. They know if we give these policies to these people, they are the best people. So they also do apply the graph database there as well, and understand how things are happening. So some pieces also being done in car thefts, which happen in general insurance companies. We have seen some patterns. First pattern, the car was theft from Rajouri Garden. The second pattern from Tilak Nagar, it went to Shalimar Bagh, and lastly to Lajpat Nagar. Next time the car theft happened in Rajouri Garden, there were people who already placed in Lajpat Nagar. They knew this car pattern is going to continue. So this is actually helping how we link the nodes. We talked about something called payments being made from wallets. We have a very interesting case study where we have third-party payments made from stolen international cards. So there are cards which are available. So now there are Nexus which is working in Malaysia and Thailand. So they have access to stolen credit cards, and they have built up the networks in Gujarat. So Gujarat is known for all those notorious activities. Those people have those stolen credit card information with them. So they have also opened up a cash service center. So once you visit those cash service center, they will say, okay, I'll pay you the premium or renewal premium. I will also give a discount. So you're paying a renewal, they're giving a discount. But they might give you 5% discount. For them, it's 100% discount. But tomorrow, the customer comes and asks for a file check. After 5 days, the entire cash center is non-existent. So this is how the industry has become complicated with the frauds. So it is very, very important we apply this graph database to understand the people who are hiring as employees, agents we are hiring, the diagnostic centers who are the medical centers for us, the doctors which we are hiring, so that we identify the fraud rings across, and we identify suspicious doctors, fraudsters, lawyers, even the police inspectors is also being found involved in various frauds. So entire link and the fraud ring can be identified by using database, and we're actively working with various partners to build up a crime network analysis. And we see this is going to superpass everything, be it AI, face recognition, voice analytics. Graph is going to become the D word in future, and that's a technology people should work on it. If you're not taking this journey, then you'll be eliminated. That's for sure. So that's take on the future of graph data.
Yeah. So I think this is resonating with what Noha said in his earlier presentation, where he said it's not about whether graph or not. They said, will you do graph or not? So that's the question here. Moving to you, Alok, we heard
does the tool allows me to concentrate where I should be? Because at the end of the day, the technology is driven by humans, and humans have 24 hours.
Correct.
So those prioritization of task and time and productivity is a very important topic. We are looking at ways where the technology is being utilized to enhance productivity also. And narrowing down your false positive is one of the approach. So for example, in the organizations which I have worked, we have looked into creating green channel. We have heard about organs being transferred through green channels, but we have evaluated and created those propositions for policyholders who are honest, because at the end of the day, there are 2-3% maximum the fraudsters who are there as a part of the system. So as a result of the checks and balances, the 97% population should not suffer, whether it's your distributor, whether it's your policyholder. And that's where the technology helps in putting our priority and focus in the areas where we should be. And that's where these green channels for policies, in fact, also for distributors who have a fantastic track record on sales quality, and they should get priority. And our risk appetite for them should be a little higher, considering they do their checks and balances in time. So this technology can definitely be used. For example, currently in my organization, there are 3 priorities areas where we have focused, where we will enhance and we will use cutting edge technology to create value propositions. So for example, information security is the biggest threat in today's time, considering the various ramifications. So I was going through with my data loss prevention tool, and I was amazed with the kind of logs it creates. And it's impossible to track a trend or predict leakage to happen in future unless I have a tool, sophisticated tool to help me. Correct. Similarly, it is on AML. The insurance still doesn't deal with the amount of transactions what a banking institutions goes. But we are the kind of channel where we are being utilized for many other activities, and we should have technology on that. Secondly, I think an interesting aspect which we came across as an outcome of certain results is we have recently looked into our system logs, access logs, database access, or the privilege rights. We looked into those logs, and they have an interesting story to tell, and linking it with the obviously the outage of frauds in insurance, which is like claims, obviously. But these logs also tells an interesting story, that who is creating those links, who are those, Nirmal was talking about sleeper cells, Saurav talked about creating a value proposition, but it links the dots there, that how this data transfers, how the information flows, how one party talks to another party. So those are the interesting aspects.
Great. Thanks, Alok, for this. Very quickly, Saurabh, for you, what Nirmal and Alok spoke about, how do you see this, relevant to your business? So, can you hear us?
Is it to me or Saurabh Daga?
I was talking to Saurabh.
Hey.
Once.
Hey, sorry, I just lost my network for a bit. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Kushal. Can you repeat your question, please? I lost you a little.
So I was saying that Nirmal and Alok both spoke about how they are, what's their thought or plan around these areas, as they rightly said, that they want to be one step ahead of the area, various, new kind of threats they're talking about.
Right.
Do you see the same applicable for you in coming days, or you already on top of it?
Yeah, very little on top of it, but yeah, the hackers and the scammers have become very smart. In the cryptocurrency and blockchain business, it's especially a lot easier to do this. You just need to have a laptop and a computer and some processing power, and you can probably hack some contracts, some exchanges. You just need to know the technical know-how. So it's even more important for us. We have started gathering some geolocation data as well, which will probably help us again pinpoint the group of users that are probably doing activities like this. We've started collecting more metadata started being more active on the dark web. That's where we get a lot of our insights from. That's where we're going to be collecting a lot more data and plug it into our graph database such that, and then once we have a lot of this data, we will be able to do network-wide analysis to figure out, hey, who's going to be doing what, who's most likely to do what type of wallets will probably be more involved in these type of activities.
Great. Saurav. Any pointers from you, Saurav?
Yeah, what Alok and Nirmal, they said those are actually day to day what we are seeing. That's really all are to the point and quite valuable. One more point, perhaps Noah, you would have perhaps analyzed or while building the architecture, and what is the pattern we are seeing now is that the phishing attack. Okay, so you will see any event that goes immediately. There are few links which are generally created to entice this kind of worried people to click on those links. So multiple times you would have seen, you go, then immediately the Google or your Microsoft will say back to safety, right? So those things. Take for the example of pandemic, recent COVID. So there are multiple sites which were intentionally generated by these kind of people, so that all these anxious and worried people, they will click on those links, and they know that, okay, now people are working from home, and there is a probability, okay, these people will click on those links, and easy for those guys to get into the system and do the hacking. Perhaps those kind of trend and those kind of mindset, if those can be captured and built into the logic of or it would have, I'm not very sure, but this is a big threat. Perhaps that needs to be taken care, and I'm sure the technology has the capability to understand any such big event when it happens, because now they are taking a peripheral scenario, okay, and all this kind of social scenario, and they are building a around those those kind of websites or those kind of informative kind of sites where people are generally, they tend to click on those links. For example, there's a train accident, right? So immediately you go to that, you are worried because any of somebody's relative is traveling, so multiple data sources they want to click, what is the latest news, and one of those are devised and designed by those hackers, right? So this is a kind of another threat perhaps coming to the industry that we need to take care.
Interesting. Noah, you have any closing comments to what Nirmal, Alok, Saurav, and Saurav said?
Yes, so a lot of those cases we were talking about are basically what we called entity resolution. How do you know that person is actually this other person, or if that entity coming up, this new connectivity at times, this new connection at times, or this new person making an insurance claim is not someone is already known or flagged in your system? Is it someone impersonating someone else using his account or her account to pretend to be someone else, right? All of this comes into the context of entity resolution. Now, traditionally, entity resolution is made with deterministic rule, in the sense that you might have a model or not, but you say basically those are my rule, and if those rules are met, I'm going to assume those two people are suspicious, or this connection attempt is suspicious, or this login attempt is suspicious. That's the traditional way. That used to be like that. You could add some mix and match and grading system, but that used to be like that. Now, Graph, what it allows you to do, because you have an holistic view of the person, you know exactly what that person is and what are all the patterns about the person behavior, but also everything that is around that person. For example, we're talking about insurance. Maybe they have put, their family on the insurance contract, right? So you have those information too. So you can build an holistic view of that individual. If you can do that, you can do what we call statistical or probabilistic entity resolution using Graph. You can put rules saying, well, if they have the same phone number, I'm going to give that a high score because that's really suspicious. The phone numbers should be unique. So I'm going to give that a 75, 0.75 score. But if they have the same name, well, I'm not going to give that a lot of point, because a lot of people have the same name. There are a lot of homonyms. So I'm going to give that actually a less score. I'm going to put 0.71. And then after, you can include your threshold and say anything above a 0.99, I consider that a fraud attempt, or I consider that the same person, and you can start investigating those. So this is also where Graph can help in all those use cases. And this is really, we were talking also about exploiting log informations and log data, and that's exactly where we come in, right? It's how do you join this database, this new database, to your, for example, your customers, your cases, and everything. So all of this is about basically able to connect the different data. So that's actually, I think, would be my closing point is don't limit yourself to what you used to do. Don't limit yourself anymore. There are new techniques, there are new ways, new technology, and it's not just in graph, by the way, just technology is the way it works, but graph especially is a game changer in the world of data, in how you can actually approach your problematic, approach your pain point, and suddenly start solving them in a way that previously was just not possible. So no one has done it. So don't be afraid to be innovators. Don't be afraid to try your technology. Don't be afraid to break it and find the limits. Good luck. We'd love to hear about that. And just, see where you can go. And you'll see that in many of those risk cases, whether it's entity resolution, whether it's, tracing frauds and fund, tracing fraudulent insurance scam or things like that, you'll see that graph actually give you an advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. So I think the time was limited. We tried our best to cover as much as possible, but this is a interesting discussion, and I don't think half an hour, 45 minutes does justice to this. So we'll get more opportunities to discuss more about it, and I'll appreciate all panelists for giving their time here, and hope to catch up with you again soon. We will be running a series on that. More topics will come. This was just one small topic we could pick today, and we'll catch up again. So thank you, everyone. And over to you, Ekta. Do we have any questions?
Yes. Thank you, all the speakers and moderator, for wonderfully moderating the session. So we'll take a questions. We have two questions from Vikram Santara from Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So he's asking, how successful will graph database be in an unstructured kind of data? Anyone of you can.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So when you say in structure, you're talking about videos. And for example, we say in structure, we're talking about videos. Text, I like to call it semi-structure, but you can include it maybe there. So it's mostly about image and videos, right? That's mostly the two main unstructured data sets. You can think of graph as a metadata store. So for example, videos, for example, and pictures, they have a lot of metadata tags in there, a lot of information. Where was it taken? What device was it used to be taken? And things like that. So you could exploit a lot of the power of graph to all those things and connect it. For example, you could connect it to the location it was taken and start building a graph of geographies where all you have your unstructured artifact coming from. And you can really think of it as as I was saying, it could be used as a metadata store. So it's not just about your data, it's what device was it taken on, where, what is it on the picture. If you have some, for example, image recognition, you can do some image recognition. You can start tagging that pictures with it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a place, and you start building that graph around that image, right? And same for videos and text. You can do NLP, you can extract the semantic, you can extract the entity from there, you can extract the sentiment from there and start building a graph around effectively a piece of text. And then you can start adding more text and more, for example, news article, and have a feed that does that. And you start building an entire ontology built around the specific topics. So this is, for example, where graph can help in the domain of unstructured data. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more question from Mr. Ratnavan. He's asking, how does graph database analysis helps in curtailing digital frauds in banks?
Sure. So digital fraud, when you say digital fraud, you mean, for example, account impersonation, false login, because digital fraud is going to cover a lot of things. So, but let's take that example, right? Let's say digital fraud. Let's say someone actually stole the password and login of someone else through phishing. We were talking about phishing, for example. So they got all this information now from you, and you don't have two factors because for reason XYZ, maybe you don't have access to that kind of security. So someone is trying to log into that account. Well, you can look at it from the perspective first, where's the geographies, but those are the typical rules and so on that you would apply to make sure that you account. But what you would look at also is behavior. What was your transfer looking like? Because you have your whole universe of transfers that you can model into the graph. So from there, you can see that there is maybe some patterns there. Maybe you transfer your money maybe mostly at the beginning of the month because you need to pay your bill. Suddenly, this one is a big transfer in the middle of the month. So that's abnormal, right? You can start looking at who do you transfer to, which is, again, that's a graph transversal. Who is the destination of that money transfer? And that might be a flag because the destination of that money transfer might be in a country where you have absolutely no relationship whatsoever, or it might be actually in a geography where you have no relationship whatsoever within a country, because you can go very granular. So fraud. So in terms of fraud, it's more about digital fraud, especially. It's more about, again, identifying the relationship between the different data points, and that's where it can help. And finally, entity recognition, as I was mentioning, is it really you? Well, that's if you have, for example, a lot of those entity reconciliation that do not work, maybe that's an alert, and you should trigger, a blockage or at least a callback to that client to make sure that, the activity taking place is actually legitimate.
And just adding to this, Noha, I can see another question coming. Any specific package available with Tigergraph to, timely detection of financial crime? So I'm sure they're talking about those financial crime kits. You want to talk about it? So how easy, how ready it is for, different industries to take it and use it?
Yes. So this is actually a complete product that we have. So this is, we can deploy that along with Tigergraph in order for you to tackle your anti-money laundering and do fraud investigation dashboard and things like that. So this is a complete solution. Feel free to reach out, to Kushal right here. He's the one we will be engaging from that aspects. But basically, this is a complete product, and it's deployed on the same node as Tigergraph. We deployed also with a web server. That's part of the product. So everything is run on the same product. Effectively, it's one package.
Yeah, it's ready to use. Actually, it's not only the graph database. It has those dashboards, interfaces which you can use and ready to go.
Yes, I have got a personal question from Mr. Rahul Thakkar. He's asking a question to Noha. Is this built on Neo4j platform?
No, so actually, this is a bad word. Don't say that. This is I would say one of our competitors. So Neo4j were first comer in the graph world, and they did what they had to do quite well. Credit to them. But the architecture underlying our technology is completely different. As I mentioned, we are a parallel distributed graph architecture first, meaning we scale and we are extremely performant, whereas their technology is actually much less scalable and way less fast. And that's not just me, pitching you the product. It's because we have the LDBC independent benchmark in terms of performance and scalability, and that's the result of that independent benchmark. So it's the technology, the fundamental idea. Yes, that's the same idea. It's graph technology and so on. So capabilities at the end, if you want to do it at scale or do deep transversal and do it on very large amount of data in real time, that's where we differentiate ourselves. So it is completely different technology. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So audiences, I think we had enough questions. Do we have any more questions? Anybody would want to say something directly to the speakers or ask directly any of the questions with the speakers, or then we'll do the closure. We'll wait for a moment, Kushal.
Sure.
Audiences.
Yeah, one small question directly.
Please.
Yes, Mr. Ramesh. Please go ahead.
Can I?
Please.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Forensic audit is one where by way of a transaction in a statement of the account, we could be able to see where the source of funds have come and where the funds have gone, whether it has gone for the purpose for which it is meant for or otherwise. My point is one, that the forensic audit is a very comprehensive and a very exhaustive to know the fraud has happened or not. Instead of having a very comprehensive and in-depth, any instant are able to understand and detect very early, because forensic audit is a time consuming, and the transaction wise in a statement of account we have to go and see. So technically, in a very short time, whether we can be able to understand this particular process. That's what precisely my point. Probably you understand well my question.
So I don't know if that question addressed to me, but I guess it all depends on the data. If you have your data, the graph will be able to display it and understand the process. So the graph doesn't make up data that does not exist. It's actually able to infer some data through analytics, but otherwise it's actually from the data. It's just this data that you already had was not able to bring the connectivity between them, because for those connectivity on traditional RDBMS system, you would have to come and have an hypothesis on what you want to ask the database, right? You would have to say, I think there is a join there that is actually valuable. And then if you wanted to do a second join, you would not be able to go there because computationally it becomes extremely hard if you have a lot of transaction to do 2 join. And 3 join, let's not even talk about it because, you know, at this point, you're just gonna just be sitting there for hours. So it really depends on the information that's there and the data. If you have that information in the data and you have modeled it into the schema of the graph or the ontology, if you want to talk about, in terms of graph theory, then you're able to walk it and find that information. Absolutely.
We did not get the name of the speaker. Who was speaking?
Yeah, I'm Dr. S. Ramesh.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Former Chief General Manager of Canara Bank.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I hope we were able to answer your question.
It's okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In case Mr. Dr. Ramesh wants more clarification, we're happy to connect you with Tigergraph on
Sure.
personal level. Yes, of course.
Now we'd love to take more question, but time is limited.
Yes,
so
we are already on time. Yeah. So on this closure note, I would like to thank all our thought leaders and our partner Tigergraph for taking out your precious time and being with us today. Of course, not missing our lovely audience for taking out your precious time afternoon and being here with us. And of course, the session was very interesting. We had lovely questions from you guys, and we shall be updating the video shortly and sharing with you all. I've also shared the feedback form 2 or 3 times on the chat box, requesting you all to please share your feedback with us. It really helps us to improve. And also the feedback mentions about one-on-one brainstorm session with Tigergraph. If you want to know more about this graph interesting technology for detecting fraud and crime, we would be really happy to connect you with the Tigergraph team. So thank you once again, all the thought leaders, Mr. Nirmal, Mr. Alok, Mr. Saurav Kumar, Mr. Saurav Daga, Noha, for being here and sharing wonderful insights on the subject. And have a wonderful day ahead, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
everyone. Thank you all
Thank
the
you, everyone.
panelists, and thank you, Ekta, and the entire Analytics team to arrange this. And thank you all, people who joined this, taking time out. And have a happy Diwali. I think we will meet after that, whatever new event comes.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Happy
you.
Diwali, everyone. Yeah, take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.